What's going on, guys? So, my name's Cody. I am a psychotherapist and dating coach that specializes in attachment theory. Today, we have on Mike, who is a relationship and self awareness coach. And he's also someone that I would consider to be a friend. I don't know how he feels about me, but I wanted to bring him on the show. He identifies as a recovering fearful avoidant. So, I'm very excited to get him on and to pick his brain because I know a lot of the people that I coach, particularly the women that I coach, have a lot of questions regarding fearful avoidant men. And you're honestly the only fearful avoidant man that I know that comes on publicly and talks about his experiences and offers coaching as well. So, Mike, thanks for coming on to my show, and I'm looking forward to chatting with you.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. We're definitely friends, I would say. The internet's a crazy place, and it's insane that we even know each other, but happy to call you a friend for sure.
So, the last time I saw you, it was in Austin, and it was at the White Horse, a little country bar. And word
Yeah.
on word on the street is you're becoming a professional country dancer. Is this true?
Yeah, man. I was taking two-step lessons last night. I'm trying to catch up to you for your next visit.
Hey, you'll get there. I might actually be in Austin soon, so I'll say what's up if I come out.
Absolutely.
Let's start off with a little bit of your background. And I'm also curious about at what point did you identify yourself as having a fearful avoidant attachment style? So, yeah, tell me about your journey.
Yeah, you want the short story? You want to hear my whole life?
I want the long story. But yeah, tell
You
me a little bit
sure?
about, your early dating experiences and at what point did you start to, think about attachment theory and maybe what you were.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I guess covering my childhood briefly is kind of important, right? So I had an alcoholic mother, very much a turbulent childhood between my parents. Mom left for rehab when I was like three. Parents divorced, dad remarried again, got divorced again before I was six. So just constantly had a pretty chaotic childhood. Um, Mother figures just constantly leaving. So, uh, it obviously affected my adult relationships, even though I was convincing myself that, I had survived it and I was better for it, and it actually made me stronger. Started showing up very much in my early adult relationships all the way until, I don't know, probably my early 30s, 34 now. Um, and I had always been curious about psychology. So I was always picking up tidbits here and there, but nothing really groundbreaking that was explaining what was going on with me. Um, I did fall into the rational male. How would you describe that? The manosphere, is that what we call it?
The manosphere, red pill content. Yeah, he was one of the godfathers of the red pill movement, you could say.
Yeah, and I was very much lost. I was very much insecure and couldn't figure it out. I couldn't understand why other men around me were um, having success, not only in dating, but in relationships, and kind of attracting who they wanted to. So I did fall into the weird psychology of, I guess, kind of pickup artistry, which does work, but it absolutely does not work in long-term relationships, and it doesn't heal your trauma. That's for damn sure. So, um, I was dating somebody for about 2.5 years, who finally introduced the book Attached to me for the first time. She handed it to me. She's like, "Hey, I think you're an avoidant. I think this book would help you understand yourself. I know you like psychology." So I read it, and I was like, "No, I think I'm actually more anxious. And since I don't feel anxious around you, I guess we're not really good for each other. So let's end things." Fast forward to another relationship, where I dated a severe, probably dismissive avoidant, possibly fearful avoidant, I don't know. But um, and then I started seeing my own patterns in her, which got me. to kind of reread Attached and start diving way deeper into attachment theory. And I did find content creators like Ken Reed, and Jillian Turecki's great, Sabrina Zohar, Thais Gibson. Um, and that's when everything started clicking. And I was like, oh, I'm actually fearful avoidant. Because I did have such an unpredictable parent in my childhood. Uh, and like, I guess the simplified way of saying it is like my deep insecurities, thinking lowly about myself while also thinking lowly about others and not having severe trust issues, was definitely showing up in my relationships. So once I grasped that, I started diving really deep into attachment theory and polyvagal theory, which explains your nervous system and how you react to triggers from your trauma. So yeah, then I just started creating content and trying to educate others.
Now, to the degree that you're comfortable, how did some of those attachment blocks or issues start showing up in your relationships? And also, to how could you differentiate it from fearful avoidance versus dismissive avoidance, you'd say?
Hmm. Um, the main difference to me is that outward insecurity, I guess, and my ability to have anxious tendencies too. Um, but it also depended who I was dating. And I know some coaches kind of disagree with that when it comes to fearful avoidance, but like my experience, I was super anxious with some people and kind of more avoidant with others. I think it came down to different types of triggers that I was experiencing with different people. And also the different stages of my life. I mean, obviously, I was growing in some ways and overcoming insecurities in others. But no, like probably the most important relationships that my fearful avoidance came up in was probably in my 20s, where like on paper, I had an amazing girlfriend in my early 20s. Uh, we absolutely, it's something I still kind of regret. She was just a great, genuine person. She had issues as well, but um, I now see how horrible I was. And like not as a boyfriend, but really just like self-sabotaging it unnecessarily and not being able to take accountability for my stuff, always deflecting blame. Um, Ultimately, like not trying hard enough to make it work. And granted, I was still kind of a kid. I was still a bit immature. I still didn't know what I wanted in life, and I was still very broke. So I've come to terms with, I've kind of forgiven myself, but also still hold some regret.
So it sounds like with that relationship, it was someone that you cared a lot about, but you used the term self-sabotage. Um, in what ways did you self-sabotage?
I felt deeply unfulfilled and I didn't know why. There was no reason for me to. Um, and the way I kind of piece it together for myself is like there was just a void inside of me and it was just unprocessed wounds from my childhood, um, and deep insecurities. So I absolutely felt the need to find validation from other women. And I had never cheated, on this particular girlfriend. I cheated on one in college after I was cheated on. Not that that makes it right, but um, but no, it was kind of like a lot of micro cheating. It was like really just validation seeking with other women, um, very much crossing the line and kind of taking her for granted. Um, yeah, I don't know if that fully answers your question.
I would say somewhat it does. Now, you seem like a very self-aware and thoughtful guy, and we've had personal conversations. You're very empathetic. So it intrigues me that that younger version of yourself was engaging in those behaviors. And So I guess how do you reconcile that? When you go back in time and you think about that younger version of you, what specifically was going on to where it made sense to entertain that outside attention, whereas now you wouldn't?
It's so hard to tap into it because I wasn't aware of what I was doing or why I was just doing it. Um, and yeah, I've always been an empathetic person. I never wanted to hurt her. Um, I would just kind of justify the micro cheating in my head where I was like, I'm not getting enough from this person, but I also didn't know how to communicate it. And I didn't even know what I needed. It wasn't about needing anything. It was about confronting my shit and working through it. I could have easily, as I said, like figured it out and been happy had I had the information that I have now. Yeah.
Would you say that that relationship was the most secure relationship that you've had, or at least that you had to that point?
Mm, no, no. That one was very rocky. She had been in a very abusive relationship just prior to dating me. She basically escaped with her life. And I was absolutely there being a fixer. There was absolutely some things that she had to work on as well. Um, and yeah, I mean, she actually technically physically assaulted me at some point. But I kind of understood where that was coming from. So no, I wouldn't call it secure, but um, in my later 20s, I did have, I don't know, like fearful avoidants get all this hate. I've never really dated a really secure partner. I've been treated securely, but it's always kind of gotten more anxious, which has triggered me, if that makes sense, where like there would just be certain events that I could not handle. I didn't know how to handle all the anxiety that was being pushed at me. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that, I don't think I've ever been in a secure relationship.
Well, I'm still curious about that to a certain degree, because a lot of people, and I'd say men in particular, are not that honest about, what you just said, or, feelings in general. Sometimes it can be difficult for guys to open up about, past relationships and things that they've done. Um, but yeah, so when it comes to secure relationships, part of the reason why I was engaging that line of questioning is because I'm curious, and I'm sure a lot of my viewers are curious about how you respond to someone that is more secure versus someone that is on the anxious side versus the avoidant side. Like how those fearful avoidant tendencies come out.
Sure. I mean, if I were kind of overwhelmed with anxiety, I very much had a freeze response. I didn't know, and it wasn't even strictly in relationships. If somebody was freaking out, I would just freeze up and I wouldn't know how to console a person. I would just need to isolate. I would need to get away from the situation and take space. And, if it were a girlfriend of mine who's like screaming at me from an argument, it was just something I was not able to resolve in the moment. Like it was just impossible. My brain was just frozen. Um, when I've dated more avoidant women, that was when like, yeah, it must have only, I think I've only been in a relationship with one more avoidant person, and that was so new to me. Um, those anxious tendencies that came out were like jarring, and that was, I was, I reacted in all the ways that you already assumed that I did, where, just like constant texting, trying to understand what's wrong. Um, yeah, I don't know. That's all I got.
When it comes to your past dating history and you think about some of the women that you've dated, do you think that you've dated more avoidance exception to the rule, so to speak, of your pattern?
Ah, Cody, sorry, you cut out there.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, so when it comes to your past relationship history, it sounds to me that severe avoidant was more of the exception to the rule of your pattern. But would you say that overall you've dated women that are more anxious than avoidant, or which direction does it go?
Honestly, probably a lot of fearful avoidance. Um, and when it comes to that push-pull, like I've had four very serious relationships. Three of them, two and a half of them, I was broken up with. So I very much would have like a moment of relief as soon as they ended. And then about a week or two or three later, I would start missing them and wanting them back. And I would go about coping with that in so many different ways. Sometimes not reaching out, most of the time, yes, reaching out. But no, I mean, I've only dated people with some significant trauma. So it's hard to say.
When it comes to women that do have a traumatic history, there's no other way to, I guess, put this, but what is attractive about them? And I mean, I have dated women that have traumatic past as well. And it's something that I've had to stop and kind of reflect on because on the back end, you're in a world of chaos and stress. Your cortisol's through the roof. And I don't know about you, but I ask myself, like, why did I put myself in this situation again? Why have I not learned from my mistakes? And so, it took me a lot of self-reflection to pinpoint those initial things that kind of drew me in. You did mention being a fixer at times. Could you talk more to that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, the textbook answer is that they're familiar to us in some way, right? And that's why we keep repeating the patterns. But I've absolutely had that fixer mentality. I'm still very much attracted to like traumatized women. It's like I can see it in 5 seconds if I meet somebody. And maybe that goes into the highly sensitive person HSP discussion, but um, yeah, I mean, I think it's something deep. It's about an unresolved childhood where I couldn't help my mother, right? So maybe if I can help save this woman in front of me, then I'll finally feel better about my past. That's kind of the conclusion I've come to about it.
Now that you've done more self work, you're more highly educated about attachment styles. When you do sense that initial attraction to a woman that, has gone through certain things and she's showing up in a kind of chaotic way, what do you feel like is your inner narrative now versus before? Because now you're at a different level than when you were younger.
Yeah, I immediately pump the brakes. And I question why I'm attracted to this person who I actually don't even know, right? Um, so there's obviously an initial attraction that we all have, but we also I think all of us have the ability to pick up kind of micro expressions and certain things that we are attracted to from our wounds. So, um, I think everybody should question why they're immediately attracted to somebody, specifically when you first start dating them. And that's what I do, like now I give myself a sanity check and now I do have a much higher self-esteem. Uh, I've done so much work on my insecurities and I no longer have that need to prove myself to people, which was driving my adult relationships a lot. So I guess I just measure people by their behaviors now and give them time to not prove themselves to me, but just see if it's a fit and a healthy one, you know.
So a lot of the clients that I've worked with, and you work with very similar clients as well. A lot of the clients that I've worked with want to unpack avoidant discards with me, and they oftentimes feel extremely blindsided. They're trying to pick up the pieces of what happened, And almost always, what we come to find when we do work together is that there were some subtle signs in those early stages if they were really paying close attention, but they turned a blind eye to those signals because of their conditioning. They hadn't broken their own intimacy patterns, so thus they rationalize those red flags, they write them off as one offs, and then sure enough, they continue to happen. And at that point, they're attached and they don't walk away. Now, that being said, sometimes dismissive avoidance, for example, can fly under the radar and they can present as very secure. So, what would you tell, or what do you tell your clients when they come to you with a discard or a blindside breakup when it comes to those early stages and what was most likely going on? And have you found the same things?
Yeah, absolutely. You measure their nervous system response to any sort of typical conflict. Um, are they capable of pulling away and just isolating in those moments? Are they a shitty communicator? Do they not want to talk through problems or bring up problems themselves? Do they just avoid conflict altogether, right? Um, Outside of that, it's how they view the world too, right? So I've never discarded anybody. I don't know if it's that common for fearful avoidance to discard people. I just haven't myself. But seeing their perspective and their kind of core beliefs about other people and about their mentality about the world in general is absolutely crucial to measuring a person's capacity to handle that conflict. Um, if they have a very negative view of other people, which you can see in their actions or even just how they talk about other people or how they view the world, if they have a very pessimistic view of the world and the future, which I kind of still do, but it might be easier for them to write off people and situations and conflicts in general, I would say.
You used the word capacity just now, and that's an interesting word choice, and I think it's a good choice of language. What do you mean exactly by capacity in those early stages?
It's kind of what I said earlier myself, where like I never had the ability to handle anybody else's anxiety because the way I had dealt with my own anxiety is I would suppress it or avoid it. So, God forbid if somebody came at me with their anxiety or emotions, I wouldn't know what to do with them. So that's having a very, very limited capacity for what really makes a relationship work, right? Like you have to be able to handle each other's emotions and talk through things. So if you don't have that capacity, then get out of there.
Do you have a specific example that comes to mind, maybe in your past relationships or someone that you dated to where they did come to you with something and you had kind of that freeze response and you didn't know what to do, you didn't have the capacity to help them out?
I was thinking about this earlier randomly, not a relationship, but as I said, my dad's been married 5 times, so he's still with his fifth wife. I have two stepsisters and a stepbrother. We had a family dog. They came with a family cat of like 9 years. Um, she, my dad, he's a great guy. He's a very empathetic person. He has like zero tolerance for animals for some reason. And he just up and got rid of our pets without telling anybody while we were at work and school and all that. So sorry for the rant. I'm home with my stepsister, and my stepsister gets a call from her mom, my stepmom, saying that my dad got rid of their cat of 9 years and they have no idea where he gave her. So she has a full-blown panic attack in the kitchen while I'm sitting there, like crying, shaking on the ground. I must have been 13 or 14, and I had no idea what to do. And like that's still burns in me that like I couldn't do anything in the moment. I couldn't console her for any reason. For some reason, I couldn't do anything. So that's like the best example of that freeze response and capacity, I would say.
Would you find yourself being in relationships and almost starting to fear having that fear response if certain things came up?
No, because I've experienced it since, and I know how to check myself now. I'm not afraid of it. I can still have a reaction in the moment, but I know to take a breath and take a moment and communicate that if I need it. Um, so now I'm fully confident now in my ability to navigate that.
Do you feel like in your earlier stages, though, of recovery, let's call it, that you would not fully invest in relationships because deep down you knew that if push came to shove, you were going to fall back into that freeze response and you were going to doubt your abilities to comfort them and support them?
If I was afraid of it, I wasn't aware that I was afraid of it, I would say. No.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So, when it comes to your advice for some of the clients that you coach, what do you feel like are some of the most common pieces of advice that you give? And then the second half of my question is, what do you feel like is common advice that you see online that you highly disagree with?
It's two heavy questions. Um, Raising your self-worth is absolutely key to realizing that I deal with a lot of breakups. So it's key to realizing that somebody who walks away from you, eventually you're going to look back and be like, good riddance. Like, I'm fine now because I've done so much work on myself. So uh, the hardest thing is, a lot of clients who want their ex back and trying to get through to them and be like, no, you don't. You really don't want them back because they're going to be the same person if they do come back. And what you need to do is work on yourself so much that you don't want them back anymore. That's the only direct route toward your healing in this situation. And I do not remember your second question.
The second half of the question was, what do you feel like is common advice that you see online that you disagree with?
Oh, it's the opposite of that. It's how to get your ex back content. Because and there are so many of them around. It's just the manipulation tactics. They work. They fucking work. I wish they didn't. I've done them myself. They work. You can get your ex back by playing hard to get, playing cat and mouse, whatever they're calling it now, golden retriever. Um, it does not work in the long term. And these people are profiting off of you. I don't know how much they charge. I hope they don't charge more than you do, Cody. But like they are giving you a very temporary solution and profiting off of your pain and giving you the wrong advice. I mean, I wish I had statistics on the amount of people who got their ex back and then it didn't work out. And then they just, revisited that wound that they should have been focused on healing in the first place.
That's fair enough. I did a little bit of digging not too long ago about stats on the success rate of a makeup breakup relationship. And I don't remember the top of my head, but I believe it was around a 20% rate of success in that first year if there's already been one breakup. So, generally speaking, 8 out of 10 times, it's not going to work out in that first year, even.
Yeah, that's because you're both the same people. You haven't taken time to work on yourself. Um, I mean, maybe even that 20%, maybe that difference is one of them or both of them went to therapy in between, right? Um, it's just so not worth it. And people need to go in the other direction.
All right, let's say for the sake of argument that I'm a client that sought you out and I recently got broken up with, but this guy was the love of my life. He was the most interesting, smart, caring guy that I've ever met up until this point, and we had been dating for a year and some change. And then all of a sudden, it was like clockwork. He deactivated, he distanced himself, he became really cold. It was like a totally different person, like a switch flipped. And he's saying now that he does want to go to therapy and he wants to work on himself. He's just unsure about how he feels in regards to the relationship because he's going through a lot of stress. There's a lot of family drama, and he just feels like he doesn't have the capacity for a relationship right now. But if he does, or if he comes to that place, it's going to be with me. What do you think I should do?
You should believe him when he says he doesn't have the capacity for a relationship and absolutely walk away and tell him to go find the capacity, but it's not going to be with you right now. Um, we can't give people access to us if they're not ready for everything that's necessary in a relationship. Um, you have to accept who you're dating right now, or else they have absolutely no incentive to change. Uh, Therapy doesn't even guarantee change. I'm sure you know that, right? And it's like, if it does, it could take years, right? And if you're having issues this early on, and he's showing you who he is, then you need to believe him. And if you're not willing to accept him for who he is right now, then you need to make that decision on if you want to stay or not. Because if you're okay with your future husband treating you that way, then you got to be damn sure about that. Change is not guaranteed.
All right, let's tweak the settings for a second here. Actually, I am married to this guy, and we have one kid together.
Yeah, very different, way different, right? You have to, you have to stint. I mean, at that point, everything's for your kid, right? It's like, and how many people stay together for the kids, right? But you would have to try to get on the same page as far as let's do everything in our power to fix this so we don't we don't screw up this child, who's probably the most important thing in your life. So yeah, you have to explore couples therapy, but you also have to also realize when change is impossible, if it is. If that person can't or won't make an effort to change, you can't force them to, and you need to know when it is time to prioritize yourself. Because what's not talked about a lot is your child at that point would be, they see everything and they see if you're not standing up for yourself. You're literally modeling to them how they should be in every aspect of their life and potentially giving them more wounds by staying, especially in a chaotic environment.
Do you have any examples of clients, or it could be friends, family, that have been in similar spots where maybe they do have a kid together, or they are married, or they've been together for a really long time, and it's tumultuous, but they're trying to weigh those pros and cons and what to do next?
Mm, I really don't. All my friends just started getting married in the last 2 years, so stay tuned. I'm kidding. But no, I mean, I guess in early childhood, I did have a best friend whose parents they used to babysit me. They had 4 kids themselves, and they were screaming at each other all the time. I was in middle school. It's probably what, 11, 12, and it was just more of the same for me. I was like, yeah, I've seen this before, I've seen this show. But they were just screaming every single day, nonstop at each other. And they were still staying together, I guess, financial issues or stay together for the kids. But yeah, I don't know. You might have lost me there. I might have started ranting. Sorry.
No worries. I do have another question that popped into my head here, which is you include the self-awareness piece in your coaching. What made you go with branding yourself as a self-awareness and relationship coach versus maybe, leaning into a different direction?
It's funny because when I started, I was heavily weighing that because dating coach sounds cheap and tacky, right? It sounds like I'm gonna teach you how to get back with your ex. So I was definitely a relationship coach, but also I was like, well, what if people are not in relationships? Like I want to help single people too. And the self-awareness piece is actually more important where I mean I also came up with the name Find My Person Coaching in an ironic way because the only way to actually find your person is to find yourself first. Um, and it involves that it's all about that self-awareness piece. So yeah, I mean that's where I came up with the whole thing.
Would you say that you attract a lot of avoidantly attached clients because you're focusing on that self-awareness piece? Because as we both know, for people who are avoidants, a lot of times that core piece that's missing is that self-awareness.
I get I get so jacked up when I do. I've only had a few and they've been rough sessions. Um, they usually come in and they're like, all right, so tell me what you know and like how are you gonna help me? Like if I even need it kind of mentality. And but no, I mostly have anxious clients who kind of halfway through the session, like I'll tell them my story and they'll be like, maybe I'm actually fearful avoidant too, because I have a lot of similarities in my childhood. Um, so being weird. Um, so yes and no, where it's like I'll have avoidance message me and occasionally book, mostly anxious, but it's a combination.
When it comes to anxious preoccupieds, you could call it, pure anxious attachment versus fearful avoidance. Again, what are some of the things that tell you that you're definitely not anxious preoccupied? Because some people might be trying to disentangle the two.
Hmm. I mean, like I said, I thought I was initially, and the only thing that convinced me otherwise, I can't remember what I had read. The only thing that opened my mind to the idea that I was fearful avoidant was the unpredictable parent, the inconsistent parent, and that children who experience substance abuse uh, typically ride that roller coaster in their adult relationships. Um, so that's kind of what convinced me. That and recognizing my ability to throw my walls up, um, and kind of self-sabotage a good thing out of nowhere, I would say.
Again, when you found yourself in those moments of stress, what made it made sense to distance instead of doubling down and clinging harder or trying to get more communication from them?
Which what moments of stress do you mean exactly?
Well, let's
Like,
say, kind of going back to the original example where your girlfriend at the time comes to you, she's bawling her eyes out, maybe just due to whatever personal issues that she's going through. And your former self, whatever self-talk that you would engage in, it would make it make sense for you to put those walls up and to get that distance. Whereas someone who is a pure anxious preoccupied, in those moments, they start to get anxious, but they do an opposite move. Usually, they try to engage in a lot of communication, and maybe to the degree that they start to make it about them because they're worried that it could be about them, and they try to kind of explore more, and they keep checking in.
okay. Yeah, no, I my go-to would be to deflect blame entirely. Um, where I was like, this is your problem. The way that you're coming at me right now is not okay. And like I didn't say it this in this healthy way, but I was like, you need to figure out whatever's going on with you. This is not my fault. And any, I guess Any sign of codependency would give me the extreme ick where I was like, I don't even know if I'm attracted to you anymore. Like I very much always wanted to be independent myself and wanted to be with people who were also independent, which makes absolutely no sense in a relationship. But yeah, uh, I guess that's the answer.
So, what made codependency such an icky or undesirable thing in your mind?
It just kind of looked like weakness to me in some sick way. Um, I and I guess looking at it now, it's like I don't want you to rely on me in any way because I can't rely on myself and I can't handle your emotions, basically. I think that was the translation that I didn't understand back then.
Got you. So, uh, because they were coming to you with intense emotions, and you knew in the back of your mind that you hadn't developed those self-regulation skills for yourself, you kind of knew that there wasn't much you're going to be able to bring to the table. So then the most logical thing to do would be to kind of stand back and retreat.
Yeah, and it was also like, look, I handle my emotions, which I didn't. I just suppressed them. You go and figure out how to suppress your own kind of thing. Like I don't have time for this. And like I said, it's not verbatim what I said. It was just kind of the end result. And I feel horrible for it now. Like it feels pretty shitty now.
So the avoidant pattern was also being kept in place because of that rationalization that you did have the self-regulation skills at the time, when in reality, you did not.
Correct. Yeah.
So you keep going into these situations thinking you have it all covered, and it's the other people that had problems that were, outside of the normal.
Yeah. Say so.
Makes sense to me. Yeah. So what do you think is maybe the top three things to focus on if you're out there dating and you want to attract someone secure and you want to maintain a secure attachment style for yourself?
Hmm. No matter, you need three of them.
And
I'm
not
just
necessarily
gonna
three,
start.
but no more than three.
Just gonna start ranting. Um, the number one thing you can do is never sacrifice your worth. You can, you have to look at the behaviors of people and see how they make you feel. You also have to be aware of if how you feel, if you're experiencing triggers, is coming from a wound of yours, or if it's a very rational trigger that would, you know, cause anybody to go into fight or flight mode. Um, if their behaviors are not making you feel good, then you have to start communicating that and be ready to walk away. You also have to see how they make you feel in the very beginning. We talk about the spark a lot and how it's total bullshit. Most people don't know that. It's like a lot of people end relationships because they claim there is no spark. So recognizing that the spark is actually your nervous system giving you warning signs is absolutely key early on in dating. If somebody is causing you anxiety, and like it's okay to feel a little excited about dating somebody new, but if their behaviors are causing you anxiety to the point where you've got lightning going through your body, that's a huge sign to stay away from. So you want to date somebody who makes you feel okay in your body and is giving you reassurance and is communicating things, but you also have to do that yourself too, uh, in order to welcome them to do the same, I would say. Um, yeah, don't know if that's three.
I'll take it. Now let's talk a little bit about breakups. You mentioned that in your past, sometimes you would engage in makeup breakup type of cycling. What do you think causes a fearful avoidant to spin back around after a breakup, and what factors lead to that?
It's the abandonment wound for sure for me. Um, where there is a very small relief period depending on how that relief period goes, really. I was very much a rebounder where I was like, whatever, I'm gonna be fine. I'm gonna go hook up and feel good about myself. Um, if that fails, or if you get tired of it, or if you feel like it's not the same as with your ex, then you start to miss them significantly. And you start to try to figure out a way to maybe make it work. And it was always good intentions, but typically whenever I did kind of boomerang back, say we did get back together, say we did hook up again, all that old shit would come right back up. And I mean, typically, like maybe even as fast as the next morning, where I'm
Mm.
just like, what am I doing here? Immense shame and just like, this isn't gonna work. Like, I still hold significant resentment for you. Um, so yeah, it's rough, but I would say the abandonment move is what made me go back a lot.
Was there any other core wounds that you're able to identify besides abandonment for you personally?
Mm, no, luckily I had, if I didn't have such an amazing father, I would probably be dead of a drug overdose in New Jersey right now. Like, I had the greatest dad ever. He taught me how to be kind. I think it was strictly the abandonment and kind of the screaming matches that I saw as a kid, uh, that gave me kind of that very insecure mindset and low self-worth. It stuck with me for a while.
And when you say abandonment, what does that mean exactly?
I mean, it could be actual abandonment or perceived abandonment. So, as I said, my mother uh, left when I was 3. So, throughout adulthood, I'm like, think about that sticking with a child. It's like, well, I'm such a piece of shit that my own mother left me. The one person who's supposed to give me unconditional love didn't. So I must be worthless. And that stuck with me until I actually identified it. And like the crazy thing is, my mom's been sober for like almost 30 years now. We have a great relationship. She just booked a flight here in a few weeks. And we've had a great relationship for the last like 20 years. So even though I had made up with her, that wound was still there. So it's like a perceived wound that you have to address and kind of reframe, that affects your self-worth.
And when you say perceived wound, to me, it sounds like what you're saying is that the wound was real, but it happened when you were younger, and that's not necessarily the nature of the relationship now.
Yeah, I mean, everything's real, but everything's also about how you perceive it. So if you were neglected as a child, then you're going to have a wound of neglect. You're going to also have self-worth issues. Um, Humans are very complicated, right? So our brains are blank computers just taking in all the information and telling us what to believe about ourselves and others. So, um, yeah, getting a
I want,
little loopy here. Sorry. I don't know
no,
if I'm ranting.
no, not at all. I wanted to touch on one last topic, and we haven't brought it up yet. But I'm curious to pick your brain about your past history in the military, and maybe how that segues into attachment styles. Because what I have noticed is that I'm not military myself. My dad was military, but some of the clients that I work with, they date men that are first responders, police officers, military, and avoidant attachment seems to run pretty rampant in those communities. So tell me a little bit about your experience with that, and if you have maybe any specific insights on that.
That's interesting. I mean, I feel like gender roles might play into that as well, right? Like you think military, first responder, kind of leaders, confident alpha male type men, right? But what comes with that is typically lack of vulnerability and always suppressing your emotions. Men in that older generation, that's kind of how they were taught, right? Because their parents, that's how they were taught. Um, and I think, yeah, I mean, that's the only correlation I could think of. Um, I, I mean, I joined the Marine Corps infantry when I was 22 as a reservist. Um, like I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, but I wanted to prove myself, and I loved a challenge. Honestly, I wanted to get over my insecurities, and I came out of training confident as hell. That's actually how I started uh, dating the one girl when I was 22. But yeah, I don't know. I think the correlation is confidence and masculinity in a way. I don't know. What do you think?
When it comes to the attractive traits, I definitely think that going to the military can be very helpful for a lot of young guys because it provides them structure and it does provide them an opportunity to rise to their better self, whether it's physically, mentally, spiritually. It can be spiritually challenging to be in those scenarios. Now, like you said, though, when it comes to suppressing emotions, I think going into those fields, military included, it almost requires the ability to compartmentalize emotions. Because if you are anywhere near combat, or just when it comes to handling violence and aggression, you have to push those more vulnerable, soft feelings down in those moments because it's warfare. And the softer man is going to lose in those specific scenarios. But then once you get
Absolutely.
out, it can be a tough transition because personal relationships require the exact opposite from you.
Absolutely. It becomes a cultural part of it, right? Where the strong survive. And leaving it, even just as a reservist, it was really strange to leave. But I do think that that's because you lose your identity that you created there, right? Whether it was as a leader, as a badass, as, I mean, those people are, I mean, you would die, you're literally trained, but also like deciding to die for anybody next to you. It's a bond like no other. Uh, but yeah, it's tough to adjust to civilian life afterwards because you lose pretty much your whole purpose and identity, I would say. But yeah, we were very much also trained to suppress any and all emotions because we don't have time for that in war.
Do you have any advice for guys that are getting out of the military, or it could be police, fire, first responders, any of those type of fields, and they want to transition healthily?
Yeah, it's the same advice I would give anybody who's having an identity crisis or trying to figure out life, and that's find your purpose. Um, for me, I think, and I don't know if it's just for me, but I truly believe that contributing to this world and helping people, or dogs in my case, is like the number one purpose in life is to influence others and help as many people as you can. And that's kind of what the military was, right? It was like defending your brothers and sisters uh, unconditionally. So you have to rediscover that in the civilian world, and it's so possible. You just need to find it. And I always recommend Man's Search for Meaning, the book. Uh, Very short book, but pretty prominent if you're feeling lost.
That's a great book for sure, Viktor Frankl. It's been a while since I've read it, but an all-time classic.
Same, me too.
What about parting advice? We'll wrap it up, but what parting words might you have?
Um, adopt a dog. The shelters are full. I think I'm about to get another one, but no, I think I said everything. Hopefully I didn't get too off track toward the end. My brain's a little fried today, but appreciate you having me.
No, no worries. Yeah, I appreciate you coming on. We'll have to do this again sometime.
Yeah, of course. You can find me on my pages, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, find my person coaching. Feel free to book a session, send me a quick question. Um, and yeah, happy to hop on again some other time, Cody.
Sounds good. All right, Mike.